Welcome back, everybody, to Santa Fe Fashion Week, Fashion Behind the Curtain podcast. I'm Stephen Cuomo, executive producer of Santa Fe Fashion Week. I'm really excited to have Brie on the line. Brie, can you tell us a little bit about yourself?
Sure. I'm a photographer. I live in LA. I do travel some, but mostly out of LA. And I do mostly celebrity, some fashion, some a lot of brand advertising, little on the lifestyle, little editorial combo. So, yeah.
Sounds pretty cool. I know a lot of photographers that I think would love to travel in your circle. Can you tell us your journey into getting into fashion photography?
Yeah, I think a lot of my photography journey was showing up, making friends, and having those people refer me, and having it be to where I just was willing to say yes to a lot of different things. So I would say my journey was a little bit of luck
Hmm.
and a lot of, saying yes and a lot of getting myself out there and just I did not go to bars. I heard a lot of people suggest to me at that age that I would go to bars and meet people that way, but I've never been that person. So I've gone more of the try to be very productive during business hours on reaching out to people and being out and being seen, which was easier then.
Then going to bars, maybe. How did you pick up your skill set as far as being a photographer?
Um, I was not knowing what I wanted to do and always was interested. I used to be obsessed with every fashion magazine. I had all of the tear sheets up on the wall and would rip them down and redo a different collage the following month. I really wasn't sure what that was going to become because nobody in my family thought about fashion or really even art as being a viable career. My dad was an artist and spent his whole life being broke, so that wasn't appealing to me. Um, but I was in a community college in Santa Cruz, didn't know what I wanted to do, so I thought maybe I would do fashion design, took like a photography class, an art class, a sewing class. Um, and 3 days into the photo class, I was like, "Oh, this is what I keep being drawn to. It's not the modeling, it's not the fashion exactly, it's displaying it." So, that was really it for me. After that, I knew what I wanted to do, and I just kept pursuing it.
Well, it's interesting. I studied photography back. I graduated high school in '81, and I think I picked up my first camera probably when I was a junior. It was a Pentax K1 1000, I think it was. And, we had dark rooms and stuff like that. My dream was really to be a fashion photographer. I'm originally from New York, but we moved to Albuquerque when I was 12. And my friend Mark's mom actually worked in the fashion district. I think she worked for Yves Saint Laurent. So I was really into photography. And I don't come from a family of entrepreneurs. So they're like, oh, you need to get a real job. And I studied photography, I think my freshman, sophomore year at the UNM. And I put the camera down for like 15 years. I was a stockbroker most of my career in actually Las Vegas, Nevada. And then I think about 15 years ago, I picked the camera up again and started producing Santa Fe Fashion Week. But it's interesting how at the time it didn't seem like a viable career. So you found your passion as far as photography. So you took some courses then to gain more experience.
Yeah, I took courses. I started photographing all of my friends. Basically, I just sort of gave myself permission to pursue it, and then I stayed at that community college, transferred to I knew the channel on television E came
Hmm.
out,
Hmm.
and I was really interested, and I was like, "Well, I don't wanna move to New York, it's too cold. I can't imagine being a photographer in New York and lugging all that stuff around in taxis and freezing and snow." And it felt far away from family and stuff, so I was like, "All right, I'll go shoot celebrities in LA," thinking it'd be easier than it was to actually go that route, but that was a thought as E started to be very, like, prevalent in regards to how much was actually happening in LA. I could see it on television, all the red carpets and all of the stuff like that. So yeah, moved to LA, started to go to Santa Monica College, kept pursuing it, started doing assisting. That was big, assisting other photographers. So,
Yeah.
yeah, I think everybody should, if you're interested in photography, assisting other people is really important.
No, that makes sense. I think like in every industry, interning and stuff like that. And I've had a conversation with a gentleman who's going to FIT in New York, and he's studying marketing. His mom's actually a very successful designer, and he had the opportunity to help out New York Fashion Week, and it wasn't a paid internship. So at first he almost passed on it, and then he did participate a bit, and he was really grateful for that. So when you were assisting other photographers, was it kind of paid, and how did you make those contacts with these other photographers?
Um, a lot of it was paid, not all of it. I would do sometimes work for free, and I found out that photographers work for free. That was the other thing about assisting is they would ask me to work for free on days where they were doing tests if they didn't know me yet. So working for free I think is very valuable in regards to meeting people, introducing yourself. I think you have to be careful that you're not working for free for the same photographer for too long. It's like free
Mhm.
paid, free paid, free paid at least. Um I think as a photographer, I don't wanna pay somebody a day rate for somebody I've never met, don't know if they can hang, don't know if I like them, when I could just pay somebody else that I already know I like. So it does make sense to me that you do a free trial for somebody, and that way also as an assistant, you can interview them as well. Um, I would never want to assist for somebody, and I didn't, assist for anybody who would yell at me or belittle me or all that stuff. I just was like, "That's not how I wanna spend my day." I did have a guy kinda did that once, and I just didn't reach out to him again to to assist. Um, I think the free work's important for everybody. I also think that right now is a strange time because the free work is it's like I hear of people interning, but they're not actually interning, they're doing the jobs. That doesn't make sense to me. If you're going to intern, you should be able to learn from someone. And then at the same time, the flip side of that is it's very difficult to find an assistant who will work for under 450 or 550 a day, which is excessive for certain jobs and certain budgets. So, yeah, it's an interesting sort of time to figure out how to get your foot in the door without doing free work.
Right, and I think it's really difficult too because, everybody with, a camera or a smartphone thinks they're a photographer, and then I understand, like, a lot of designers don't have a huge budget and, but they still need to get the work done, and so they're trying to do the best they can. I was watching some of your I think I obviously, I found you on LinkedIn, I believe, and then I was right before we came on, I looked at your Instagram and stuff like that, and I saw some of the behind the scenes stuff of some of your fashion photography. So, do you remember the first time you did some fashion photography and it was kinda like paid work?
Um, no, I don't remember that.
Mhm.
I did get paid. I started getting paid. Um, okay, 2 things
Mhm.
back in the beginning. One is I started getting paid to photograph sexy girls for their portfolios because back then there wasn't the put your phone in the mirror and turn around kind of thing.
Mhm.
So girls who wanted to do Maxim or Stuff or Playboy or anything that was like on the sexy, which a lot of people did, a lot of actresses, a lot of models wanted to do that, lingerie, swimwear. So, back then you had to have another photographer take your photo to put that in your portfolio. So I started getting paid to do that because it was just a natural it was what I already had been photographing of my friends and stuff like that. Um, and so I started going to modeling agencies. So I remember getting paid for that work. And then I don't remember my first fashion shoot, but I do remember the Razor magazine. Um, his name was Craig, and he started hiring me a lot to work for Razor magazine to do fashion and celebrity. So I do remember being really excited about that, but it wasn't my first job.
That's cool. So it sounds like when you started, was it pre-social media then? Would you say like pre-Instagram,
Oh, pre-social
pre-TikTok?
media? Yeah, I thought you said pretty social media. Yeah, I started in the dark room. You did too, right?
Right, exactly, exactly.
Yeah, I started in the dark room.
So how do you see that changing? There's a lot of talk, obviously, about AI models and AI photography and stuff like that. Have you seen that becoming an issue, or have you run up against that?
Yeah, I think we're in the middle of it becoming an issue and it becoming something, um, I think it's I guess it's obvious to me that that is going to replace certain models, certain photo shoots, certain things. I think it's obvious that it already has. I follow people on purpose that are either AI created or, bragging about using AIs as their advertising or whatever. So I don't think that that's going to stop evolving. I think it's only going to get more and more advanced, more and more human like. But I think the trick is uh, using it when it doesn't cost you your customers. Because when we start talking about AI, we have to talk less about who's creating it and who's creating the art and more about who's buying the art. Because as a commercial photographer, which is what I am, I'm trying to sell my photos to help sell products or people. Um, we have to talk about what the buyer wants. And I think that there will be both use for models being created to show you what a shirt looks like is not as harmful as a buyer if you're on the buying side of things, watching a fake person tell you that they like a product. So those are two very different things. I don't mind looking I mean, obviously as a photographer, I don't want this to be the case, but I'm less offended if a fake person is showing me this shirt than a fake person telling me how much they love this shirt. So I think that that's where the AI will become the replacement is when they're showing you things. I think that we still are going to want humans to convince us of why we should want to feel a way in something, but for how long? I don't know if in 8 years we won't even be able to tell the difference at all.
Mhm,
Um, I don't know, that's and then won't we rubber band in some way and sort of spring back to the concept of now we won't want people to be wearing makeup and filters because 'cause we'll wanna be able to see the difference? I don't know. I don't know about you, but when I see those, like, AI and real, which one is which,
mhm.
I struggle sometimes, and that bothers me.
Yeah, I think it's interesting, just watching, like Uber, let's say, when the founder of Uber came around, he's like, he thought that was going to take over the world. Like nobody's going to own cars anymore. And obviously people still own cars and it's still a very small amount of business. Or when Amazon came around, they thought it was going to knock out all big box stores. And obviously that's still like 10% of all retail. So I think AI, like you said, there will be a place for it. Is it going to put us all out of business? Probably not. I mean, there'll probably be a small market for that, but I think our jobs aren't in jeopardy. But I think there's a lot of stuff on social media that's trying to scare us, like, oh my God, AI is going to take over the world, and in photography and fashion stuff like that. So I'm not really sure if that's quite the case. I saw. I think you just did a lifestyle fashion shoot. Was it for potato chips or something like that, or what was that?
Oh, pizza plant
Oh,
maybe?
pizza place. Yeah, pizza
Yeah,
place.
pizza plant, yeah.
Okay, cool. So talking about lifestyle photo shoots, it's funny. A friend of mine, Dr. Andy, I post about this a lot. He owns an energy drink called Beyond Energy. And it's interesting because we go round and round and round because he's in love with the way the can looks and the logo. And if I do a photo shoot for him, it's like the can's really got to be front and center. And I'm more thinking it should be a lifestyle thing, like people that gravitate towards that performance drink, whatnot. So can you talk about that, like lifestyle photography compared to like product photography?
Yeah, I mean, that I feel like is it's an interesting conundrum, I guess, which I always just try to talk to the client long enough so that I understand what they're really trying to achieve. Because if what you're trying to achieve is making the person who's looking at the ad want to be a person in your ad, then it's lifestyle, right? If you're selling a product and you want the person to basically walk away from your ad picturing your product in their head so that they can identify it in the supermarket, then it's more of a product shot.
Mhm.
Does that feel right to you, or is that sort of similar to how you would see it?
I seen someone I think on TikTok talking about, and I think he's got a fashion brand, but he does like three different things. Like he'll do like a lifestyle shoot, and then as one campaign, let's say, and then one as a product shoot. I think tying the stories together. I don't think either one could stand on its own because, again, like you said, it's how does it feel to fit in that lifestyle and being wowed by that story, more storytelling, if you will, rather than here's a shirt or a dress or something like that.
Right. Yeah, I mean, when you're shooting them, it's very different because
Mhm,
you don't, if I that particular for pizza plant, it was like, I can't have someone hold it here. I don't want the pizza to look like that. I want it to look like that. So, you certainly have to be aware of things when you're shooting it, that the product is still, if it's supposed to be in the shot, it still looks good. It's still prevalent. It still has like a character in the lifestyle shot. But when you're shooting an actual product, it certainly is the focus at all times of where you're placing it in the ad and how it looks and you the fingers have to be just so they're not blocking anything, and it just takes it's just a very different vibe. One, I definitely think, is selling an image, and the other is selling the image of a product.
No, most definitely. So have you seen social media impact your business, or has it changed the way you're doing your business?
Yeah, I think I'm not great enough at social media, just bottom line. I do well on LinkedIn and like it, and LinkedIn's been the most successful for me personally, because I can talk about being a photographer. On Instagram, I feel like I would give myself like a C minus. Not because I don't create content that's pretty or interesting, but because of the algorithms, I don't do all of the behind the scenes, back end of that media. Um, so it's definitely not just about your visuals. I do find visuals. I do content creation for other people. It's not the visual part is where I struggle, but the back end, the algorithm, the learning when you're supposed to time your posts and how many to do of this type of post versus that type of post and the stories and it's like I find it to be for me, like my ninth on my list of priorities in the week, and I never make it to my ninth on the list priorities in the week. So I just end up doing like not a throwaway post, but like a post. It's like, here's my photo, here's what I worked on, here's this pretty girl I just shot, here's a shot from my, last photo shoot. LinkedIn, I find much more organic for me. It's just maybe my people are on LinkedIn more than Instagram.
Do you find yourself belonging to any different fashion groups on LinkedIn? Have you utilized the different groups?
The groups, I utilize them, no, but enjoy them, yes. That's where I do almost more of my viewing of, like, scrolling versus posting. But I like getting lost in those groups. Yeah, I like being around peers. Would don't you feel that way too in
Yeah.
terms
Well,
of
I was
yeah.
gonna say it's a great way to build community as well because I basically I don't even repurpose. I'll take like this podcast, I'll take and I'll do little clips, if you will, and I'll post them on TikTok and Instagram and Facebook and LinkedIn and then LinkedIn groups because I probably belong to like 15 different like emerging fashion designers, different groups that do fashion. And so I'll post those videos on there, and then ideally people see it like, oh yeah, I want to be, participate in Santa Fe Fashion Week, or I want to be on this podcast. So, maybe that might be something to think about too, is taking some of your great content and then putting it on those groups as well so they can find you.
Yes. Thank you. I do. I don't have enough hours in the day to pursue all the things I should be doing, so
Yeah.
it's really hard to figure out how to create your new jobs as well as promote all of the other jobs that you've done. Um, but it's a balance I don't brag about. I
No,
don't
it's okay. I mean, it's a process. Now, do you utilize TikTok at all? Do you have a TikTok account?
I actually really like TikTok. I stopped using it more when I was like, "Is it going? Is it coming? Is it going? Is it coming?" Because I don't like the idea of building an audience that you then lose. But at the moment, it's here. So now I'm, yes, going back to it more. I do actually like TikTok. I think it's fun.
No, I think it's interesting too because I'll post the same, like I said, the same exact video on TikTok and Instagram and Facebook. And sometimes YouTube will outperform because I think YouTube is trying to push out more short form, if you will, and then sometimes TikTok will outperform. So it's a lot of brain damage. So I'll just post each one on there. And then I noticed you did you recently update your website? I see you have some stuff on there as well.
Yeah, I have had a clean looking website, similar to what it looks like right now. I've had that clean looking website for years, and it was the end of 2024, like maybe October 2024, and 2024 was a pretty quiet year for a lot of us, especially in LA, strikes and different things. So I spent the last part of the year being like, I have never just vomited all of the stuff I want on my website. I've never done quotes. I've never done all this stuff because it doesn't look clean and it's not what other people tell me to do and it's not what my peers are doing. But I was like, I feel like doing it. I'm making a website. I'm not asking anybody's opinion. I don't want feedback.
Mhm.
And then I got enough feedback after I posted it. Some people were like, "I love this. It's so fun." But those were more of like my friends, not my clients. And I had, a couple different art directors be like, "It's just too messy." So you are looking at the recently unmessied,
I'm messy.
back to the clean look website. Yeah.
I think it's interesting. I think as an owner of a business, it's good to get feedback and have open minds, and then kind of sift through like what makes sense, and then who's your website or your content speaking to. So
Yeah.
let's talk about if for people that want to become fashion photographers, and you're obviously in a big market, LA. There's a lot of people that don't live in LA or New York or even let's say Dallas area. Any recommendations for someone who's thinking about going down that path of becoming a fashion photographer?
Yeah, okay, so my advice to people is always do a little research, find a fashion designer that you like, especially somebody who's kind of new, smaller, up and coming, someone who you think might have something in common with you. So I, as much as I love it, probably shouldn't go for a 23-year-old who really loves those like huge clothing that's unisex looking. Like my vibe is much more of like I want to see the waist. I want it to have something artistic off the shoulder. Like try to find somebody whose brand you actually would wear yourself, or be drawn to yourself, that represents your natural fashion vibe, and then approach them with some of the photos you've already taken. I would say offer for free one time, not
Mhm,
more, but like
mhm.
one time, let me shoot it in the way I'd like. When you do that, make sure you're following your own voice, not theirs. I never tell people to ignore the client, so that's not what I mean. Don't ignore the client. But if you're doing work for free that they may or may not want to use, that they may or may not want to hire you for next time, you certainly want to be able to take that work and use it to get somebody else. So offer to do a free shoot one time for a up and coming brand and just say, I'd love to like use your beautiful designs that I love so much to create a portfolio piece for myself. And if you want to use it, great. And can I also please ask for your help? Like, let's make this so that hopefully you will want to use it. Um, Make sure you do it a timely manner in the calendar year, right? So you know this. There's people put out designs twice a year usually. Make sure that you're offering your services before they need their photo shoot so that they can think about it, have you in mind, keep up with them. So if you approach them in September, you're talking about spring, right? So basically make sure that you're timely and then you stay in touch with them at least once a month. If I still have this in my mind, I've collected a makeup artist that wants to work with us. So really make it your own portfolio piece and make sure it's slightly collaborative so that you do earn them as a client. And then promote the heck out of it. Promote the building of it. I'm excited for this job. This is what I'm doing for it. Here's my production. Here's behind the scenes. Milk all the behind the scenes you can get. Like just milk the whole process and do the right hashtags, do all that stuff that I'm telling you I don't do properly, do the algorithms, all that good stuff. Make sure that people are following you, make it a story for yourself. And this story will last from September through April, May, and then you start again. You're looking in April for your fall clients.
It's interesting. I did a podcast with a woman out of, I think she's out of Phoenix. She's an art director, and I found her on TikTok, and she was doing kind of what you just mentioned. She was documenting her, let's say, transition into being an art director, and it was very interesting, the behind the scenes stuff. So she would see something that would inspire her, and then she would make it her own, let's say. And I think, like you said, just milking the most out of it, documenting the whole process. I often tell designers that participate not only in Santa Fe Fashion Week, but let's say other fashion events, not only just show up and do the event, but hey, I just doing the documentary. I just got accepted to this fashion week. This is me preparing for my
Yeah.
travels, maybe doing some photo shoots on the way to the event, and really just getting the most. Because again, it's about creating content, and so people want to watch interesting things. So if you're not really doing anything, it's hard to create interesting things. So
Yeah.
would you say, are your shoots more studio shoots? Or are you doing stuff in and about your location?
I've been really interested in studio stuff lately. I just have been obsessed with like very moody, darker lighting with darker backdrops and less going on, just really featuring the dress, the people, the expression, the makeup, the hair. So I've been really interested in that lately. But for the most part, my career is much more inspired by being outside, finding cool locations. I love beautiful houses to shoot in more than anything. I think that's what I love is like a location that matches our, obviously a well-chosen location for what we're shooting. I just it's been kind of an interesting time in LA with the fires and stuff's just I don't know. I have a studio. I guess I got drawn to that so I could
Mhm.
have less drama with all the locations and stuff like that. Um, but I just don't know how people ever are not inspired as photographers when you're out in the world. Like when you're driving around, don't you see like a really cool alley and you're like, "Oh, I really want a beautiful red gown right now in the middle of this alley." Like I don't know how to ever stop that from happening.
Well, I think, being in Albuquerque or Santa Fe or wherever the people that are watching this or listening to this podcast, I think that might be something to leverage that even though maybe there's not a lot of designers in that city, if you could reach out to designers and then maybe have them send their product to that city. So now you have an interesting backdrop. New Mexico is really big in the film industry, and there's places in New Mexico where you can make it look like the Middle East or different cities. And so maybe leveraging that. So maybe you're not in a big city, but you can maybe leverage the unique city that you're in.
100%. In fact, I would highly recommend it, um, especially for your audience. I mean, I think it was 2 summers. Anyway, I spent, 1 or 2 summers in Corrales, New Mexico, and
Oh,
loved it,
yeah.
and so, I can still picture those really long, wide dirt roads with all the horses' heads coming over the gate, kind of
Mhm.
coming up to see you. I just think that that isn't something we have in LA. I'm from Tucson, Arizona. Every time I'm there, I'm like, oh God, there's so many places to shoot that just don't look like LA. They don't look like New York. I really do think that leveraging what you have, especially right now. I mean, your audience, especially this whole um, horses and earthy cowboy, cowgirl, like all of that is so in. Like, take advantage because eventually it'll be something else. We'll go back to the city alleyways instead. But right now, this is all about your audience's area is a great place to have people ship you product and shoot it. Absolutely.
Yeah, westerns are definitely big right now with Yellowstone and some of the other I mean, westerns are just really, really huge right now. So lastly, let's talk about models. So are you working with agency models or how are you finding your models?
Yeah, I used to work with I mean, sometimes my clients I used to work with Chandlu forever. They would always pick their own models. I often have clients who have already built relationships with modeling agencies, and I don't intervene in those relationships because I know how it works. Once you find somebody, they'll give you deals, and it helps, if you keep using their same models. Right now, I've been having a relationship with Shelly at Q Model in LA for so long that she's my go-to. And that's nice too, because if she has somebody that needs photos, she'll send them to me, and then I get to meet somebody that I wouldn't otherwise have picked. Um, but I think really modeling agencies are like everything else. It's a relationship. You want to treat their models with respect. You want to give them consistently good imagery. You want to be professional and then they trust you and that just builds. Um, you can always approach an agency and ask, I would like to do a free test. Who would you have available? But just be aware of the fact that even a free test for a bottle agency, they want to make sure that your portfolio is something that they respect, you look like a professional. They do not want to send a model out on something that feels sketchy or gross or unprofessional. They certainly don't want to ask them to waste their time with somebody who doesn't know what they're doing. So I wouldn't approach a modeling agency until you are ready to present yourself as being professional and serious about your craft.
So obviously it'd be a good idea to have some kind of portfolio made up, even if it's like your friends and stuff like that. I think the challenge too is, I have I won't name his name, but a designer here in town, and he's got money, but he wanted to do it on the cheap, and so we're just using models that they're not professional models, so they honestly don't know how to pose and stuff like that.
Yeah.
And to me, it's like spend the money, you got the money, have the models that know how to model, and you're gonna save a lot more money in production because you're not, just not wasting your time trying to train a model. So,
I don't for one, I'm gonna be honest, I don't think that 90% of the photographers out there know how to direct models. I think that what they do is they use models who do whatever they do, and they don't know how to direct. They don't know what their hand or their hip or their whatever should look like, so they just either have a good day or a bad day with that model. So, in those cases, it's a horrible idea to hire somebody who doesn't model professionally because now you're relying on somebody who doesn't know what they're doing to be directed by somebody who doesn't know how to direct. And usually it's the client that feels like that shoot was a waste. Um, because it's like there's something missing and maybe they don't know what it is. The girl could be very pretty, right? Like,
mhm,
and it doesn't always have to be a girl either. The
mhm,
person can be very good looking,
mhm.
but still not actually know the details of modeling. On the contrary, you can probably have a not great photographer. I don't know. I still think lighting is everything. You can have a not great photographer who gets lucky with their lighting or hires an assistant who knows the lighting and have
Mhm,
a very pretty model, and the whole shoot looks amazing. So, models don't get enough credit. It is not as easy as you think to place your body. And these days, we are asking models. A full day for a model used to be 14 outfits. It's now 62. Like,
wow.
we we are asking a lot of them. Um, and their rates have gone down. It's not so easy. It does mean something when someone's a good model. So I highly recommend I think it's there's a site, I'm trying to think of the name of, it's like model sorry,
Mhm.
but it's a bunch of people who are like regular people that are good looking that post photos of themselves, and it's, in my opinion, just not where people should be spending their time looking for models. Like,
Like
go
Model
find
Mayhem, is that still
Thank
a thing?
you.
Is that
Yeah,
still a
like,
thing? Yeah.
it doesn't elevate anybody because you have people who are trying to start their work as a photographer or as a fashion, as a fashion photographer, and you have people who are trying to elevate themselves as models, and nobody in there is elevated to help the other, and in my
Mhm.
opinion, like, it's great if one person's elevated and then you bring it up and then you can play a game of tennis of like going back and forth. It's not great if neither party is elevated because nobody's able to serve the shots. Do you know what I mean?
No, it totally makes sense. I think, like you said, it's definitely on both sides. It's a skill set. The models need to know what they're doing, how to pose. The photographer needs to know how to be like an art director and have the correct poses. Because I've seen photographers ask models, "Oh, what do you got?" Like, and a model might have like 3 poses in their back pocket, and it's just, and if you're a client paying for this, you're just gonna be scratching your head like, "Oh my god, what did I get myself into?" So, it's so glaringly, obvious that they don't know what they're doing. And going back to, like, being a good-looking guy or a pretty model or even, like, an actor or an actress, it's amazing. I meet people and, like, "Oh, I wanna become an actor." "Well, you should take some acting classes." They just think their looks are gonna get them through it. It's like, there's a lot to becoming an actor or a model, an actress. I mean, there's so much more to it than just being a good-looking person.
Well, and also, I really think that we do models or actors a disservice when they show up by basically expecting them to carry something because they are showing up on purpose. The whole role of them is to be a chameleon. Give me some direction and then I can work with that. And usually, after about 20 minutes, a half an hour of the model being able to figure out what the shoot's about, how the photographer works, where the lighting is, they'll give you better than what you got in the first 5 minutes. But it's not like they get the briefs. They're held out of all of those production meetings. They know nothing until they show up. So if they know nothing, they need to be given something at the beginning, even if it's a headshot that everybody knows the whole point of the headshot is to show up and just get a photo that looks like you, that people wanna hire you from. They still need 20 minutes to warm up. The more the more successful they are as an actor, probably the less likely they are to know what to do in a headshot situation because they're used to being given a script.
Mhm.
And I really think the same thing happens for models. It's like the better they are, the more they can do. But if it's show up and what do you think? They're like, I don't know. Like what's the plan for the day?
Right,
Give me
right.
something to work with and I can show up with that and also give me a few minutes to figure this out.
You make a lot of sense. I think direction, even, I was saying this the other day, my daughter just got married, I'm a proud father,
Mm.
and, I had a bow tie on, and, I'm looking at the pictures, and nobody said, "Hey, your bow tie is crooked," you know? And it would've been nice
Nobody?
to, like nobody, my son and my daughter's busy getting married, so I don't blame her,
Sure.
but yeah, I mean, even if, there's a professional photographer, and yeah, I mean, and I'm kinda like, maybe I'm uh, OCD or something like that. I see something wrong. I just even people I don't know, like, this isn't correct. So I'm just like, oh, I wish someone would have said that. Hey, it's like, but again, it goes back to photographer, like really paying attention to like, you know, this is giving direction because again, sometimes the model and I've done this too is like I look like a deer in the headlamp lights, because I don't know what my expression or maybe I'm thinking about something and it's showing on my face. So I
Yeah.
think direction and even let's say a model with maybe not a lot of experience can get directed into the right situation because you could give some insight.
They always wanna know what to do with their hands. They
Hmm.
always wanna know what to do with their arms. They are not aware of if their shirt is half off or half on, that should be and also the photographer I cannot look at eyes, feet, hands, hair, dress all at the same time, right? That in my frame, those are all at different places.
Right.
So, somebody else needs to be helping with the bow tie and the straightening out the necklace and all that good stuff. It's not that the photographer should never catch those things, but they should not be the only one
Sure.
responsible for that. Um, but yeah, every model needs to be told what to do with their hands. The best models really that I used to work with, and changed a little bit because the fashion style change. Now people want models who are more intense. It used to be that I used to just be like, look, go grocery shopping in your head. Oh my God, like what am I gonna buy for my such and such? What do you put on it sandwich? I don't know. Because if you're sitting here going, what is my hand supposed to do? I'm not sure. Is this what he wants? Like you start thinking everything gets stiff but like, "Oh, I love Oreos." At least you're like
No, that's really great. That is really great stuff. Never heard of that before, but you're right. If we spent the day wondering like where should I put my hand, or
thinking,
that make for a very long day. So I think we'll wrap this up, and I really appreciate you being on our fashion podcast.
"Oh, it's my pleasure. Thank you. It's a joy to talk with you."
You're welcome. And as always, if you work in the fashion industry and would like to be a guest on Santa Fe Fashion Week, Fashion Behind the Curtain podcast, please reach out. I'd love to have you on as a guest. Take care.